Good morning, and welcome to another Gribley's Folly Sunday Antisocial Hour. That time each week when I smoke my pipe and complain about humanity while also answering his questions. And if you are a piece of humanity that has a question, you are welcome to leave it down below in the comments section with the hashtag AskGribs, and I will answer any question. Also, you get to the front of the line if you don't have a penis. My wife got me a new coffee mug, which I don't even think, can you call this a mug? I think you could call this like a vat. It's a new coffee vat. It looks like something Darth Vader would drink his coffee from. It is a pelican. I don't know if you can see there. Yeah, I'm kind of intimidated by it actually, and it's got like a spout on it. Crazy. But it works. It's comfortable, and it keeps the coffee very warm. Smoking an old custom-built Sint-Bee by Northwest Pipe Smoker, and in it is, of course, some old limey bastard. I was gonna smoke Old Dark Fired in this, but I find that these pipes with the wide, shallow bowls really need like a finer cut, and it's a breezy 27 degrees here in the community garden and massage parlor, and so I got the kerosene heater going. I got my lawn globe hat on. And let's get right to your questions. Francis Barnett, hashtag AskGribs. What is gravitational lockstep? Very simple, Francis. Gravitational lockstep is the process used by Willy Wonka to create the everlasting gobstopper. Over a pipe, AskGribs. In line with your devil stretching, have you ever tried DPP yoga? Let's find out what this is. DPP yoga. So he says, I feel you would be a credible devil stretcher to review the intro to DPP yoga.
Hey everyone, it's Stevie Richards, and in today's video, I just want to give you an overview of what...
Why is this dude wearing a belt under his nipples?
...we do in the beginner class here at the DDP Yoga Performance Center. There's a lot of people that walk...
Why is he getting ready to do yoga with a folding chair?
My Tuesday and Thursday night classes at 5:30 p.m.
Okay, I feel like I'm enough of an expert on this now that I can say that DPP yoga looks like a cross between yoga and professional wrestling. And therefore, I give it 2 thumbs up. Last week, we had a question from Amy Mack to Kid Electrolux. Have you ever been to the National Vacuum Museum or something like that? And Kid Electrolux responds and says, yeah, I'm not a freaking conduit here, guys. Like, you talk amongst yourselves. You don't. Anyway, I've not been to. I found this comment pretty interesting. I'm not been to the museum, and I'm not really into vacuum cleaners. But years ago, someone had thrown out onto their front lawn an old upright Electrolux, and the spectral image of the ivory-colored vacuum in the half-light and mist caught my attention. When I needed a YouTube name and unable to use my own for fear of ridicule, I came up with Kid Electrolux. Well, now I want to know what your real name is. Kid Electrolux does have a hashtag AskGribs question. After the Mona Lisa was stolen in 1911, idiots queued to see the space where it had been. Then later, more idiots came to watch the first idiots. Was this the beginning of performance art? No, the beginning of performance art was the Dukes of Hazzard. But I think this might be one of those like emergent phenomena. Like it might have been performance art for like a minute there. Yeah, that does seem pretty stupid. I actually don't know this story in spite of my art history background. Do not know this story because we never learned anything about any art that wasn't... Never mind. And so, I'll have to look this up. P.S. Tell us about the meditation group. Thanks. So I got several questions about the meditation group. I'm not going to talk about that today because it's kind of a long story, and I'll have to go back and find... I don't know if I probably deleted it, but I made a video about it, and then I deleted the video because, or I didn't post it because I felt that it was too mean. So we'll have to go back and see if I can take some notes to get back in that frame of mind. Paco Rumblefish asks Gribs, which condiments do you put on a hot dog? And which tobacco would you pair it with? Ketchup and mustard. no mayo on a hot dog. There's already enough grease in there. And I find that this is a thing you have to grip, right? So you don't want too much lube, right? You don't want to soak it with condiments, because then it's when you start eating the hot dog, which is a gesture I'm not going to make on YouTube. The wiener might slip out and fall into the floor of the baseball arena where you are watching baseball, because that's the only reason you would eat a hot dog, right? Actually, that's not true. That's not true. Around a campfire, a hot dog can be okay, but then the only condiment that I like on my hot dogs is charred exterior hot dog. So, what tobacco would you pair it with? Personally, I think of a hot dog as a very savory food, spicy, and so therefore I would pair it with something a little to the blood, like a Carter Hall kind of tobacco. Actually, I would just not smoke a pipe while eating a hot dog. But in the case of around a campfire, I would probably be smoking Old Limey Bastard anyway, or something with a lot of latakia. I guess that's an answer. So it depends. It's context. It's dose dependent. How spicy is the spicy hot dog? And if you're not eating a spicy hot dog, why the hell are you eating a hot dog? And then context dependent. And if it were wine, I would say Merlot, because that's the only kind of wine I know about. Yes, we have a conspiracy theory question, so that when I talk about conspiracy theories later in the video, I can say that I wasn't the one that brought conspiracy theories up. Contemplative Piper, ask Gribbs, did we go to the moon? Yeah, why do people think that we didn't go? Hang on. So I just spent a few minutes reading up on the moon landing conspiracy theories, and yeah, I see no reason to doubt the official account that we did go to the moon and we did take pictures, and those pictures look plenty valid to me. I do have a little bit of expertise when it comes to looking at pictures, both real and fake. And yeah, I don't see any of the claims that I couldn't refute just by like my knowledge of the moon landings, which is not very thorough, but I know the cameras that they used. And like, for example, these photos are way too high quality to have been shot on the moon. No, they're not. They were using Hasselblads. It was medium format. That looks about right to me. I always say that we dismiss conspiracy theories at our own peril. And this is certainly an interesting week to talk about that. But this one just never caught on for me. I never understood. Yeah, okay, I can see the motives of saying, well, we wanted to show up the Russians. But if your average American could see, like if all these things were true, and your average person looking at these photos, your layman, photographer, whatever, could see that these were not genuine photos, then surely the Russians would be able to see that too. And that would be much more damaging for the US than the Russians beating us to the moon. Which they were never going to beat us to the moon. They didn't have it, maybe we didn't know that, I don't know. Whatever, yeah, I think we really went to the moon. Pipes and kayaks, ask Gribbs, have you ever been up here in New England for any fishing or camping? No, I would love to come and fish in New England. I think that starts in Pennsylvania, right? And then it goes kind of to like the Yukon. I don't know. Yeah, I've been to New England, but it was long before I was fishing or even camping. And New England just seems cold to me. Why would you camp in New England? Why not camp here where it's 27 degrees? You know, my namesake, the kid in my side of the mountain, Sam Gribley, runs away to the Catskill Mountains to live in the woods. And and I remember as a third grader when I read that book for the first time, the description of the New England winters in the Catskill Mountains is, wait, that's still in New England, right? Whatever. And yeah, I've never had any desire to do that at all. Tant says, I appreciate your thoughts. I will be sure to share with Tant the Younger. He likes the Oreo Pop. That's right. Tant the Younger. Tantify. Pop-Tarts all the way. As for Makers 46, I haven't tried it. We discussed this last episode. Haven't tried it. However, I am rebuilding my bourbon stash this year. So, my opinion on the Makers 46 is the same as that of Ziggy Num Nums, who also wrote in, but I don't think I have his comment here. But basically, yeah, it does taste different, and to me, it tastes sweeter than regular Makers. I'm not that big a fan of regular Makers. I do like Makers 46 a little bit better because I feel like it just has more something to it. Makers has always fallen a little flat in the flavor department, but it's not worth the upcharge. Like I said, the bottle was gifted to me. I don't know what it actually costs here, but it costs too much. So Derek Tant asks Gribbs, who is the worst person in history? Wow. Wow. Okay, so the big names that come to mind, of course, for most people would be Hitler. For me would be Stalin, who dramatically surpassed Hitler in pretty much every aspect. It would be hard to argue against Stalin, just in terms of sheer body count. Then you get Pol Pot, I guess. You know, Mao was pretty bad. I think Mao actually had the biggest body count of all the communist guys, but and I have this giant biography on Mao that I have yet to crack because I'm still reading that book about the Korean War. I'm like a third of the way through this book, and this week I was kind of depressed, so I decided I would read a book about war. And I really tried to like make some headway on it, and it's just slow going, you know, because it's getting off into the weeds about Acheson, however you say his name, and Stilwell, and the Chinese Civil War. Anyway, I mean, it's hard to argue with Stalin. Hitler, had he had a longer reign, might have surpassed Stalin. I mean, Stalin had, what, 26 years? Stalin had a long time to do all the terrible shit that he did. But the worst person in history? I mean, what is your metric? Because it's like, we're just going by body counts with the Hitlers and the Stalins and the Pol Pots. But like, what about the severity of their, like Ted Bundy? You know, like the things that they did personally. Let me think about this a second. Very quickly, Stalin knew what he was doing. Hitler was crazy. Like Hitler was had a personality disorder, and I'm sure Stalin did too. But from what I have read of Stalin, he was a lot smarter than Hitler, and the decisions that he made to kill all these people were very cold and calculating. It was not, I hate Jews, kill them all. It was like, well, if I kill off this entire population of kulaks, then I will get this reward. You know, and it was he played a much longer game and was a much more, I mean, it's hard to say he was more sinister than Hitler, but that's where I would get the, you know, because at least Hitler, you can kind of say, well, he never actually saw the ramifications of any of his actions, and when he did, he killed himself. You know, you could kind of make the case that he was just some crazy guy that people took too seriously. Stalin, it's all Stalin. H asks, for bushcraft, more a knife or hatchet, if you could only carry one large blade? Interestingly enough, I just filmed a video about the contents of my ready bag, which I keep in the back of my car, and I have neither of those in that bag. I actually have a different fixed blade knife, but between the two, I would honestly, I would go with the Mora, because I feel like a knife is more versatile than a hatchet in my environment where I can break most limbs that I would want to burn. You know, I built the Bothy without cutting any limbs, really. And so I think the strengths of a hatchet are lost around here. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because I've never done any really long-term stuff, but I would much rather have a tool that I could use to start a fire. I could use it to cut most things. I could use it to clean a fish or something like that, clean a small animal, versus a tool that's really mostly just for chopping limbs. However, what I meant to say is my number one tool of all time, if I had to walk into the woods with only one tool, would be my Cold Steel Spetsnaz shovel. That has gotten me out of more situations than anything else has ever gotten me into. Codger Jim, does your green sock cap make you look like a model for army helmets? I don't think so. I think it's a little too form-fitting. Army helmets don't tend to be as flattering. They don't show off the curvature of one's skull. And as we all know, I have a very curvy skull. And regarding the news, if it bleeds, it leads. Yeah, of course, of course. We were talking about the news last time, which we will definitely talk about this time here in a minute, because I'm getting ready to go on one hell of a rant. But first, Typing Piper says, if I identify with being a girl, does that bump me up to the front of the line? Clearly it did not. But I must say, Typing Piper, that if you do a video in drag, I'll bump you up. I'll bump you up there. You know, and the other thing I must say is Tom was right when he sent me this custom built, is that the wide, shallow bowl doesn't really smoke that well. I agree. It's a good pipe, but there have been excessive amounts. There have been excessive amounts of tamping and relighting. Speaking of Typing Piper, he had a video on this subject as well. And you know, last week we had the video from my town of the guy knocking the little girl out. And this week we have the video of the Coventry Catholic kids in their MAGA hats yelling at a Native American elder. Except that kind of wasn't really actually what happened. And this video like exploded on the internet. Everybody's talking about it. Everyone's pissed off. And then it turns out it might not really be the way that it was initially portrayed. In fact, there might not be any evidence that these kids were yelling, "Build a wall." There might not be any evidence that there was any actual racial epithets hurled. Now, of course, there is evidence that these kids were a bunch of assholes. And we're not, you know, being the gentlemanly young men that they should have been. It was a protest. People yell at each other at protests. People say really vile things at protests. And so then there's the addition of the Black Israelite protesters to the March for Life protesters to the Indigenous Peoples Rally protesters. Did you guys hear what the Black Israelites were saying? Like, they actually said these things, right? These things that everyone says, well, oh, this kid was smirking, so clearly he meant to be racist. But the other kids, I don't know if they were kids, the other guys were clearly racist. Like, clearly. And homophobic and all the other. So why isn't that the news? I don't understand. Okay, but the point that I'm making here is that this video, the cut video, the shortened video that made it look really bad, not really, made it look bad. I mean, I watched the first one and I was like, yeah, I mean, okay, that looks like an uncomfortable situation. Sorry that happened. It's a protest on the National Mall. What do you think is going to happen? There's going to be some people yelling at you. You're going to be made to feel uncomfortable. That's... Like, if you don't want to feel uncomfortable and have people yell at you, probably very specifically yell at you things that are about your own identity, don't go to protests. And I don't know if, like, the average American has just never been to a protest. That, whatever. This thing was put out by a Twitter bot. It's almost as if there was like an entity out there, right, that employed Twitter bots and other sort of hacky, internet-y tactics to sow division in the United States. It's almost like someone wants us to be fighting each other and completely distracted from what's actually going on. Everybody has their conspiracy theories, right? And here's mine. Here's mine. Those in other places or other power structures or whatever you want to say. We'll call them Ivan. Ivan took a look at American culture and media and saw two things. Number one, people on the right meanwhile, on the left, all you have to do is like show a video of with like some sort of hint of some kind of non-politically correct, backwards thinking, intolerance, something like that, and they just go batshit. They can't stop it. They can't help themselves because it's so egregious to them that somebody out there might be a dick. People are dicks. I'm sorry. People are dicks. They're racist. They're homophobic. They're whatever. Whatever you want to say, it applies, right? Why are we still so surprised when people do stupid shit? Why does that continue to just like Anyway, the point that I'm making is that people on the left meanwhile, the federal government is shut down. And who shut it down? The guy in the Oval Office with the ties to Ivan. You see what, you kind of see, do you smell what I'm stepping in? If you are watching the news and you are mad, you're being played. If you like are so pissed off that you have to get on Facebook and tell everybody how pissed off you are and how right you are and how you know that the ideas that you hold are so true, you're being played. It's because controversy sells. But you're being played. I saw an excellent comment from some sort of Trumpkin on Reddit, I think, talking about the Roger Stone arrest, which, yeah, seems a little excessive. I imagine that there are reasons that it was excessive that we don't understand, or that we're with knowledge that we don't have. By the way, the whole idea that CNN was tipped off by Bob Mueller himself, no. If I were CNN, that's exactly what I would have done. I would have been staking out the dude's house. I've been hired to go stake people's houses out before. Like, that's something that happens in the media. It was a Friday. The grand jury hands down its indictments on Fridays. Roger Stone has been saying, yeah, I'm probably going to be indicted for like months now. It was not, no one tipped off CNN. They were smart. Sorry. I mean, random act of journalism. Anyway, what the fuck was I talking about? Right. So the person was saying, well, if they can do this to Roger Stone, they can do it to you. Yeah, they can. They got lots of dudes with guns. They can do whatever the hell they want. That's why they're called the government. But that comment is then made to seem like we're in some new phase. Like this now we're in some sort of phase where anybody can be rounded up because they're a Trump supporter or whatever. Yeah, but it's not a new phase. Like, that's been that way for generations now. And yet we're pissed off about some video of some kid and some Native American dude beating a drum. My conspiracy theory is that we never won the Cold War. That the powers and principalities within the former Soviet Union did not just disappear. I mean, Gorbachev is still alive. I didn't know that until I Googled it. Gorbachev is still alive. Not that I think Gorbachev is behind this. I think we all know who's behind this. And looking at the historical precedent, the historical arc, the characters are still there. Their economies, their economic policies are different, but their hold on power hasn't really changed much. And I think arguably the biggest change is that the Russian Federation has much less military and economic clout than the Soviet Union ever had. But we're now in a world in which that stuff matters less. And stuff like the division of the American people matters a lot more. We were unified against the Soviets, right? Everybody hated the Soviets. And now half the Republican Party thinks Vladimir Putin is the good guy. So that's my theory. That's my theory is that the former Soviets have been very wily this whole time and have used things like the rise of cable news, the internet, whatever, to exploit the division that was already extant in American politics, but has gotten much, much worse. Yeah, we were fools to think it was over. Prove me wrong by next week, and we'll talk about it in the comments section below. Hashtag AskGribs, or hashtag Gribs is a McCarthyite, or whatever you want to say. I don't know. McCarthy was a terrible person. Don't get me wrong. Terrible person. But perhaps not factually incorrect. I don't see things changing much. Well, I mean, I kind of do. Because I think we're headed for some really... Okay, here I go. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. If you disagree with this theory, please leave a comment below, and I will ridicule you 1 week from today. Keep the ends out for the ties that bind.